What is up, everyone? Overlord Moon here from the Overlord Moon channel. Today, I'm here talking with my good friend Erradic. So thankful to him for letting me hijack his stream. And today, we're going to be talking to y'all, just having a little chat about accomplishing our goals in Season 1 of The War Within, what our goals are for Season 2, and telling you the truth about really reaching your goals in World of Warcraft in a little bit of a more realistic way than what you may see portrayed on social media. So, without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So, Erratic, you have been pushing for Gladiator for 4 years now. You have finally accomplished that goal of achieving Gladiator, and I know you shared your story a little bit. I'll go ahead and link the video when this comes out on YouTube so people can check your story out in a little bit more depth. But I want to start by asking you, what was the most challenging part of your journey in that 4-year time frame where you were pushing for Gladiator?
That's a really good question. So the hardest part of like trying to get better at PvP is like learning what you don't know, because like you can sit there and grind games all day, every day, and just not get better. And a lot of it has to do with not knowing what you don't know. And that's kind of like where I got stuck for a very long time, because I was playing with people and we were all the same experience and we just didn't know really how to improve. So until I actually kind of branched out and started playing with people who were, more experienced with years of experience in arenas, who had gotten to higher ratings and stuff like that, I didn't really get to grow until I got to that point. And it's not really, I wouldn't blame the people I was playing with. We were all kind of stuck. It was really just due to the lack of experience to get better. So yeah, as far as like the most challenging thing, it was realizing I needed to do that to actually grow and get better at the game.
I could definitely relate to that too. You don't know what you don't know, and it's very much like when you're playing with players who are the same experience, you feel like you're the blind leading the blind. And when you get better, especially at PvP, it's not as linear as people think it is. It's very much like a step up at a time, and you're playing against like a different tier of players. So I can
100%, yeah.
definitely sympathize with that in that regard. Can you share like a standout match or like a highlight or a special moment that really defined your journey?
I can't really pick a standout match, but like I would say the Q session where it was like me and Santi and Rakesy playing Shadow Priest Warrior, and we peaked at 2388, which was like way higher than my previous season. I was like, wait, this is actually going to happen. And it didn't end up happening with them. Again, I had to switch comps and stuff like that to actually be able to keep pushing higher. But yeah, that Q session where like it actually felt like this is going to happen this season, because that was like a month before the season ended. I was like, dang, this is actually going to happen.
Yeah, and your journey especially too, what I find inspiring is that it kind of goes against the standard grain of what people say to improve, where it's just like you pick a comp, you pick your people, and you master that comp and you push for Glad with just that. But you kind of went about it a little bit of a different way. You had to adapt so much to playing with several different players with several different play styles, and you played, I think, a bunch of comps, right? You were playing like Thunder at one point, you were playing Shadow Priest Warrior, you were playing like Ret War. I think you played with an Asa Rogue at some point too. Like that was very impressive that you had a lot of comp variety in your actual push. But when you are sticking to a goal like Gladiator for so long, because even I am still a failed Gladiator at this point, how did you stay motivated over the duration of 4 years, especially during those tough times where you may have, say, like tanked 200 CR in a night or had a really bad Q sesh?
Yeah, so I kind of want to bring it back to a little bit of what you were saying with where I was pushing a bunch of different comps. I definitely think there's validity to choosing, a comp and people to play with and pushing with them until you hit Gladiator. But I think my journey was just different because of the class I was playing and because of the classes my team were playing. It wasn't ever really meta. That's part of why my journey looks very different. I just wanted to bring that up because I don't think that sticking with a comp and pushing that way is an invalid way to do it. I just think you guys have to be playing the right classes. Now, as far as staying motivated, the thing is, I just enjoy World of Warcraft, right? And I set myself the goal of hitting Gladiator. And I mean, I do this with everything in my life. I'll just come up with random goals and I cannot stop until I've hit the goal. Like I've done it with jujitsu. I've done it with several other hobbies, stuff at work, even. It's like, I don't want to, I'm not very good at half-assing things. So really the motivation, like there's definitely very frustrating nights. It's very easy to blame it and be like, I can't get it, I'm too old, I don't have the reflexes, or people are gatekeeping. Those kind of thoughts constantly went through my head. But really it all comes down to like, this is a video game. the reason people are higher is because they're better than me. I gotta get better if I wanna hit this goal. That kind of was the motivation that kept me going.
I was just gonna say I don't want to necessarily turn this into a Glaze Erratic video, but that is a aspect of you that I deeply admire and draw inspiration from. Is that you, even though you could come off as stubborn at times, you set a goal and you stick to it through the end. That's it's a very good characteristic to have.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so we kind of been talking a lot about me. I kind of wanted to know what your I know you had a really good glad push in season, was it 4 of Dragonflight, or was
Season
it 3? Okay. And I know it was really frustrating getting super close and not, quite hitting that goal. I mean, I was right there with you. I really thought you were gonna get it with how close you were, but I mean, I know how frustrating it is to get close to that goal and not hit it. And you switched over to PvE, and it felt like you had a lot of fun doing it. Do you want to just talk a little bit about your transition over? What motivated you to do that and how it went?
Yeah, sure thing. So, at least in my push for Gladiator in season 3 of Dragonflight, I had a lot of things stacked against me where at the time I should have just accepted that it was a matter of the season as well as like IRL things. Like I know in the last 2 weeks of the season, my mom was hospitalized. I had mass layoffs at my job. I had to work like 60-hour weeks. I was prepping for vacation. There was a lot of things that went wrong in that regard, as well as just playing in like a very super deflated season. But at the end of the day, I just was not good enough at the time. And with all those factors stacked against me, like it really just came down to player skill. But regardless, that push just drained me, and any motivation I had to play PvP was just completely gone. I went on vacation. I came back. I'm like, man, I don't even know if I want to play WoW anymore. But I reconnected with a couple old friends and we started playing Mythic Plus again. And something about Mythic Plus was it was fascinating because it felt fresh and new, and I noticed that my skills transferred over very well from PvP to PvE, where all the fundamentals of the game, like learning my defensives and learning crowd control, what your stops are, knowing my class utilities, such as I was playing Resto Shaman, so I had a purge available to where I could rip, magic buffs off of enemies, and I was able to enjoy the game in a new light in that regard. And season 1 of the War Within, I took the plunge into the PvE scene. I tried out Mythic rating. I did okay, I guess, for my first season, and I was able to hit a score of 3K in Mythic Plus, which I'm very happy about. Got it just at the end, and on a brand new healing spec too. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah. I'm impressed that you kind of pushed 3K in like basically your first season on a brand new spec. There's a whole discussion between which is easier, PvP and PvE. I could definitely see how PvP, just because you're having to use every aspect of your class to do well in PvP, would transfer over to PvE really well. What would you say is like the toughest part of getting 3K rating? Because like I know when I've done some keystones, I'm like, dude, I hit my 2K and I'm like, it wasn't that hard, but I do not want to push any higher. And to go from 2K to 3K seems like it'd be super difficult.
So the toughest part about PvE climbing is chasing specific dungeons, because you get to a certain score threshold where, let's say I time like 5 dungeons at a level 13 and I'm trying to clear the rest of the 3 dungeons at a level 13. I either need to have the connections that will get me into the level 13 dungeons that I still need to time, or I need to do essentially what are called homework keys, for those of you who may not be like too into Mythic Plus, where you have to do different keys at a lower level that you don't want to do for an RNG chance of getting a attempt at the dungeon that you need to complete. And that can be very frustrating too, is when you're bricking keys over and over and over again, and then you have to spend so much of your time playing trying to farm a key to get back so you could have one more attempt at it. And then especially when it came to like timing the Stone Vault, I have had so many runs brick on the first pull of the dungeon itself, where something will go wrong, a fear cast will get off, we'll have 10 deaths in the first like 5 seconds of the game, and that's it. Like I got to go back and do more homework. So definitely chasing specific dungeons, I would say, is the most difficult part in Mythic Plus.
That's interesting. I would not have expected that answer, to be honest.
Well, the connections aspect, like, well, what did you think I was going to say? Because I kind of want to double click on that.
I mean, I don't know. I would think, I guess learning the keys, or yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't have expected that.
That's fair. That was something that was a little bit new to me too. When I heard, I was watching some rank 1 players, Kess. I was playing Augment Evoker for a little bit, and he was talking about this concept of doing homework keys, and I'm like, "What the hell's a homework key?" Somebody who's
Yeah, I've
like
never heard
only
that.
PvP'd before. But yeah.
All right, well, cool. So you switched from like Resto Shaman to Disc Priest. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you did that?
Yeah, and you also switched from Resto Shaman to Preservation
Yeah.
Evoker, so the Shaman Council is not looking well upon us at the moment. But
Yeah.
I swapped from Resto Shaman to Discipline Priest because in PvP, Resto Shaman plays a little bit differently. In PvP, Resto Shaman is a proactive healer where you have to be ahead of the game. It is very difficult to come back from Resto Shaman when you're behind. Your utilities, such as like Grounding Totem and Trimmer Totem, it's very good disruption. And you have Wind Shear as well. So if you're able to build momentum in an arena match, you can do so well with Resto Shaman. It plays very differently in PvE, where it's a more reactive healer, where really all you do is just throw up your healing rain and maybe throw in a couple chain heals and spam chain lightning. And I found myself getting very bored, almost to the point of burnout again, in just like a month or two of playing Mythic Plus. And there's always been this allure to Discipline Priest, or really just any healer that has that sort of proactive, momentum-based playstyle, where Disc and Resto Shaman are a lot more similar in PvP, even though Disc is consistent in PvE, Resto Shaman's not. So I was like, okay, I kind of like that playstyle. Discipline Priest kind of fits it. And it's very rewarding when you know when damage is about to happen and you're able to successfully prep it a couple seconds in advance and just do the most healing in the game. It just feels so rewarding. And then you have these cooldowns like pain suppression that are damage reduction, where in higher keystones, it's more so about surviving rather than just doing as much damage as you can. And so having 2 extra cooldowns that you can put on the tank and be like, hey, tank, you just call for these and you'll live forever. It makes you a lot of friends very quickly. And I like that aspect of Discipline Priest. But you swapped on over to Preservation Evoker. I'm very curious to know what that motivation was behind that.
So I've always really liked Resto Shaman in World of Warcraft. I thought they had a really cool aesthetic. The male gear, I love playing like a Draenei, huge jack dude, and having the having the shield and weapon like is so cool to me. Like Holy Paladins have it too, but I don't really like that aesthetic. I like the whole dealing with the elements of Resto Shaman. Throughout Dragonflight, I played Preservation Evoker kind of just like casually, and I always had a lot of fun of it. But like kind of going back to the goal thing, like I had always been like Resto Shaman is going to be my main this expansion, and so I feel like that's what kept me on Resto Shaman longer than I probably should have, or could have been, because every time I played Preservation Evoker I really liked it. I liked that you were super mobile. I've learned that it's not really that way, but Preservation Evoker kind of gave me an excuse to not be positioned correctly, because you're like, I always have to be in, and it is a little bit true, but you can still position a little bit more defensively. But it took off the pressure of like not being positioned correctly, if that makes sense. The Resto Shaman, like the big thing is also like interrupting basically on cooldown. Preservation is a lot longer. I was bad at wind shearing as often as I should, so losing that aspect of it was kind of bad too. And then just the damage, like dude, Preservation Evoker, you can do so much damage. It's a really fun offensive healer. So yeah, the truth is I just enjoyed Preservation more. And then also it was really, really good when I started playing it back in season 4 of Dragonflight. And then I came into this expansion and I was like, I'm going to be Resto Shaman main again. But then Resto Shaman just kind of ended up being the worst healer the entire start of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be a meta chaser, and I think if I was truly a meta chaser, I would have hopped on the Holy Paladin or Disc Priest, because they were definitely the 2 dominant healing specs in season 1 of the War Within. But I feel pretty good that I stuck with Preservation Evoker, really got down and got close to mastering it. I don't want to say master it, because there's people who are out there and I'm definitely way better, but I feel like I got a lot of the interactions down between other classes and stuff like that. And just Preservation's fun. I don't want to give up on Shaman. I've heard Shaman's really good in PvP right now as of this launch. Like I think Cedu was calling it the best healer alongside Mistweaver and I think maybe he said Disc. So that had me really excited, because I basically what I want to be is a Preservation Restoration Shaman, and I'll just probably play whatever's best in the season, or if I have a specific comp I want to play, I'll play what's best. Not completely giving up on Resto Shaman, but Preservation Evoker is way more fun, where Elemental Shaman or Restoration Shaman has like a really cool toolkit. I like the aesthetic, and I like the healing with it too, as long as it's not just dog shit.
Yeah. So I guess when you compare the two, do you think you miss Resto Shaman at all, or have you sort of embraced your new identity as like a preservation evoker main now?
There's definitely things I miss about Resto Shaman. Like one of my favorite things to do on Resto Shaman was staticking, like getting really good statics, pulling people out behind pillars or putting them somewhere and stunning a group of people for like huge cleave for my team. I like both of them. I wouldn't say I miss Resto. I do miss playing Resto Shaman, but I don't miss it in a way like I wish I was playing Resto Shaman instead of Provoker. I just have fun on Provoker when I play it. I have fun on Resto Shaman when I play it. What would you say like the biggest differences between Discipline Priest and Resto Shaman are?
I
I
think I
mean, you
touched
kind
on
of,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, a little bit earlier, it's just more so that like Discipline Priest is very proactive in a PvE sense. Same with PvE, and whereas Resto Shaman's a little bit different between the two. And I don't know, man. Like speaking of which, I do miss my Resto Shaman as well. I mained it for 5 years, and that's what I got most of like my YouTube channel and content creation going off on, was like the sense that I am this Resto Shaman main. And now that I'm playing Discipline Priest now, it feels a little weird,
yeah.
but um I think I like what you said earlier, where I do want to be able to play both, and I still do intend on gearing my Resto Shaman in season 2 for the case that it does become meta, although I don't know how that's going to turn out. Resto Shaman, it's like it's not been exceptionally terrible, but it's not been over the top busted for more than like a month or two at a time.
Yeah.
Where it feels like Resto Shaman, anytime it gets up there, Blizzard says fun detected and nerfs us into the ground. Whereas Priest is a more it's a more evergreen class.
Yeah. I know that you were planning on maybe coming back to some PvP in season 2 of or the War Within. Shadowlands was 2 expansions ago.
I did,
And
yeah.
you want to talk about on that and maybe like what you're looking to achieve in PvP if you do make a return?
Yeah, so peer pressure is a thing, kids. No. No, let's just say I had a really good meetup with some online friends very recently at Disney Springs. I don't know if you know a guy. His name is Erradic Gaming, I think that's his name. Yeah.
Yep.
So I had a really good meetup with him and a good buddy of mine, Nanner, who's also a good buddy of yours as well. And then you guys had a mutual friend, Santi, who I had met for the first time at Disney Springs. And listening to the three of you talk about PvP, specifically Arena, I want to say I've kind of burned out on BG Blitz. That ship has sort of sailed. But when it comes to Arena, the way you guys were talking about it reminded me of just how much fun I had doing rated threes in voice. And even though I've been upset with the game in the past, be it, MMR systems, be it the implementation of solo shuffle, be it balancing, whatever, the most fun I've had with this game has been when I've been in a voice chat with two other guys and we've been doing our best to win 3v3 games, or if we're on like a hot streak and it's just we're locked in, we're coordinating our crowd control so well together. And I miss that aspect of PvP. So I definitely will return to doing arena of some sort in season 2. Maybe not pushing for Gladiator right off the rip. Maybe get my PvE goals out of the way first. I think that might be the best way of going about it. But definitely coming back to the arena scene and having some more fun there. Question for you, because I know you were talking about at that infamous meetup, you were thinking about trying to get 3K in Mythic Plus, especially now that there's a new achievement and mount attached to it. What's driving you to push for that?
Yeah, so first I want to say like I'm excited that you're returning to PvP. I know people and probably, my group of friends and stuff like that are glad to hear that too, because we could always use more healers. Yes, so it's funny because my mind has kind of changed on that today. I 100% plan on doing a 2K push, but I learned today that the 3K is just a recolor of the 2K mount. I've been kind of used to where the last couple expansions, the mount each season is just a like different form of the same skeleton. All throughout Shadowlands, it was a shadowy vortexes, and then last expansion, it was the dinosaur, just different forms. I thought that was happening in the War Within 2, so I figured we were getting some sort of mech suit mount for season 2 for 2K, and that the 3K mount was a brand new, its own model. And then I was looking on Wowhead today and just saw that it was a recolor. So I'm not to say that I for sure won't push 3K, but I would say like one of my biggest motivations in World of Warcraft is 100% cosmetics. And when it comes to mounts and stuff like that, really all I want is the model, unless there's just an insane coloration that makes it way worth it. And for me, the 3K coloration probably isn't enough to make me push. I will say what would make me push is if I just really enjoy what I'm playing in Mythic Plus. And I don't think we've talked about this yet, but I really enjoy playing Preservation Evoker in PvP. I'm not against healing in PvE, but I kind of want to like learn more of the Evoker class and feel like maybe not a master, but like I feel like I know the class, not just the spec. So I'm planning on playing. And one, the other reason is I'm also raiding with a group of people, and I may not be able to make every raid, so I don't want to fill one of the critical spots of like a tank or a healer. So I'm going to be playing Devastation Evoker in PvE.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my plan for the season. So if I'm having just tons of fun and dev cranks and I see my name at the top of the damage meters, then maybe I'll push higher in Mythic Plus. But I can't really see myself going through probably hundreds of hours to get 3K rating. But we'll see how it pans out.
That's a fair take. You're so you are getting another bat, right? You're getting the recolor bat.
That's a great question too, because like Gladiator was a lot of fun. I think it will be easier to do the second time around, but at the same time it'll be harder because it'll be the second season of an expansion, and historically each season has less and less participation, meaning you have to be, you know, in a higher percentage of the ladder to get those rewards. So if it doesn't seem like I have to just annihilate my personal life to get it, I will definitely try to get it again. There's several people I met this season, you know, who would all make it easier for me probably if I'm able to queue with them. But I would also like to be able to play with some of my old partners and maybe see if we can reach new heights. I'm not dying to get it though, because again, my main motivation is cosmetics. I already have the model. The new coloration is not special at all. In fact, I would say it's probably worse than the first season. So I gotta say the motivation there for me to like push myself really, really hard to get it again. I don't know. I say that, but I'm gonna get to the end of the season and be like, oh man, it'd be so cool to say multi-gladiator. But we'll see. We'll see.
Glad. Correction, you technically you are a multi-glad now.
Yeah, if I say I'm a multi-glad, people are gonna be like, bullshit. Let me check PvP. Where's the multi-glad at? But yeah, no. I did get 2 bats, so that's pretty cool.
That's not only crazy that you were able to finally achieve Gladiator after 4 years in like I would say it was a pretty difficult season if you compare it to say like Shadowlands season 2, right?
Yeah.
But you did it twice on 2 separate characters.
Yeah.
While you were like just helping people get their glad, you're like, you know, here's my second glad. Nice little flex there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's one of sorry, I was just gonna say it's one of those things where it's like it's just a skill. It's just like a skill level. Once you get there, like all I had to do was stay at 2400 and get more wins. So it's like it's kind of crazy, but it's like if you could do it once, you could do it twice. It's just sending enough games, right?
That's fair. It's very it's a good message of hope that you know, maybe somebody will take away from this. So I guess how do you plan to prepare for season 2? I know we're at the time of recording this in this sort of dead week where 11.1 just dropped, but the new season's not quite out yet, so people can't really get the gear that they need to do. Is there anything you're doing to prepare, maybe offline, maybe getting your connections together, or I don't know. What are your sort of plans to prep for season 2?
Yeah, so it's really weird because like I don't want to push PvP super hard at the start. I do want to focus on the Mythic Plus and rating. So really right now I'm just trying to learn dev in a PvE setting because I have been playing it in PvP a little bit, and I think it's going to play a little bit differently. I'm going to be doing like delves every week probably because I know that's at least a good source of starting gear to work your way up from. And then really probably just like looking around trying to find people who want to play some Mythic Plus, maybe hit up my boy Moon, see if he'll run some keys with me. Maybe play some alts. I'll probably hit some arenas this week, hit some solo shuffles, and honestly my physical health, like I think that's one of the things like not really talked about, but I feel like physical health is so important to like getting better at the game. Your mental is affected a lot by your physical health, so making sure you're not just eating shit and I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but rotting on the in your chair, trying to get up, get your heart beating, you know, that kind of stuff. It actually helps so much more with gaming than people probably give it credit to. So I'd like to start focusing on my health a little bit more because there's a lot of late nights during the Glad push, a lot of early mornings where I would wake up and be like, I need to push some shuffle to keep my shit tight. That I skipped gyms or I didn't get enough sleep, and I think a lot of that was not a great idea. So yeah, taking care of my physical health and, you know, just practicing. What about you? How are you getting prepared for the next season?
Just making connections. It's so weird. I recently reconnected with a guild that I played with in Shadowlands. season 1. There were like one person reached out to me and I rejoined the server and I joined a voice chat one day and then I was almost blindsided in a way. Like all these people joined back from my past. And at first I was like, oh man, like I was 19 then. I was cringing at some of the things I, wish I would have said differently but yeah, just like reestablishing old connections, making new connections, really using this time to learn Discipline Priest a little bit better to where when it is time to go for Mythic Plus, I know what I'm doing. I know where the damage parts are. I know how to prepare in that sense. And I found out that unfortunately, Oracle happens to be the best Discipline Priest hero talent for Raid. I just want you to do a quick little guess how many global cooldowns you think I need to ramp my healing just to get my healing out.
Oh, I have no idea. 4 or
Just
5?
4 or 5? I wish. Try 18.
Oh my
I need
lord.
to cast 18 spells before I'm allowed to. But you know what? This is what I took on. This is my new life. I made my bed. It is time to
That's
sleep in it.
insane. Yeah.
But yeah, just getting that memorized and ready to go for the raid. Dude, I'm so hyped for this raid.
What are you most excited for in season 2?
Well, okay, outside of content, I'm the most excited to make new friends. That I've noticed like every single season, like there are some people that come, there are some people that go, there are some bridges that get burned. Some people think I'm like the most evil, worst person on the planet. But in that process, I make a lot more friends in this game and new connections, just being able to share this game that I love with people and just enjoy playing the game with. I think that social aspect of WoW is something that is not talked about nearly enough because if you get like good teammates in Arena or like good teammates in Mythic Plus, you are more often than not playing with those people more than you're spending time with like your real family. And those connections can run deep. You can make real life friends that you meet up at Disney Springs at an Irish restaurant or yeah, a little side there, or like go on a cruise with people that you meet on the game. And that part of World of Warcraft is always very cool. So, new content aside, I'm very hyped to meet new people this season and have a good time playing WoW. How about yourself?
For sure. I think that was like such a good answer. And it's not even something I had thought about, but yeah, I've made so many new friends just trying to push Glad that it is a really cool part of WoW. My answer to this is actually probably pretty sad. I'm not super stoked about the raid, but I'm hoping that once I get into the raid and I start progging it, I will think it's really, really cool. I'm not really excited about pushing keys, but it's again, like the game is the most fun when you're playing with people, but I should not be negative. The thing I'm most excited about is just getting PvP balancing. Like you don't get new PvP balancing except for these big patches. Like I mean, I guess you'll get one like maybe at a 0.5 patch, but like I'm really excited about all the changes that were made to the different classes, different specs. I'm excited to hopefully have a new meta because God, I'm so fucking tired of affliction. It's probably still going to be good, but it's looking like a lot of the melee cleaves that have been good in the past will be good again. It's looking like Resto Shaman will be good. It's just really exciting to have a new meta in PvP because it gets really stale when you're playing with the same exact balancing for 3 months and it's been the top 3 specs that you're facing every game. It gets tiring. So yeah, definitely the new meta that will hopefully emerge.
Just be careful of what you ask for. Be careful of what you wish for, my friend, because the last thing you want is a Resto Druid spell cleave meta where it's like MLD and you're sitting in crowd control for like 18 of every 30 seconds. That's like that would yeah, I don't even want to think about it. I'm not going to wish that into existence. And you know what? I'm going to go to church this Sunday. just kind of make sure that doesn't happen. But anyways, speaking of funny goofy things in general, what do you think was the funniest thing that had happened to you in all of season 1?
Funniest thing to happen to me in all of season 1. Dude, I don't even have a good answer to that. I mean, like I've had funny conversations and stuff like that along the way, but I can't even pull anything from my head. I probably should have thought about that a little bit more. I can't. I mean, I don't know. I may come back to it, but how would you answer that question?
I was talking to a friend in game in Dornegal, and we were just. I think I would tried to like make a failed guild at the time, and I was on Moonguard. I probably should have prefaced that like this all took place on Moonguard, and there was a Worgen Death Knight who ran up to me in the wild shape form, or the not the wild shape, the wild charge form. When they get on all fours.
Yeah.
A Worgen Death Knight player ran up to me, sniffed me, like in game, traded me like a steamy romance novel, and then walked off. It was funny. I'd also never been more uncomfortable in my entire life playing this game.
I
But that's
will
just a
say,
quick.
like, funny stuff happens way more in PvE. I feel like, because like in PvP, like there might be like funny and like, what the hell just happened? I just got one shot out of nowhere, but like nothing that like I could point my finger to. I like the funniest times I've had have probably been in raid, but it's been so long since I raided because I basically got AOTC and then completely stopped. That I can't pull anything out.
I will say there was also a Dawnbreaker dungeon I was running within this past week where the tank got a nosebleed in the middle of a boss fight and ran away for like 5 seconds to go grab a tissue and then was proceeding to like handle his nosebleed while one arm tanking. So yeah, the players of this game are pretty hardcore. But do you have like an epic memory from the season? Then if we can't talk about funny, do you have like any particular standout moment where you're like, oh yeah, this is just epic?
Yeah, I mean, so getting that 50th win for Gladiator was really epic. Getting an additional 50 wins, like my first 50 wins were with a bunch of different comps, and like my last 5 wins or whatever were with Leveladin and I think Rin. But getting like 50 wins with just Santi and Leveladin was really freaking cool too. Getting up to like, I think we got up to 2700 MMR was something I would not have expected in my first season. Leveladin's obviously insane. I've been doing my best to not reach chat, but Reflex is bringing something up as a funny, but I think this is also an epic memory. My last game of the season, like I said, I've been playing some dev in arenas, Devastation Evoker.
Yeah.
And so my last game of the season, I ran Devastation myself. Reflex ran Devastation. That's his
Oh
main.
no.
And then Nana ran Preservation Evoker. And our last game, we just annihilated this team like 5 seconds within getting in combat. And it was funny. It was epic. We just annihilated people. And I think one of the dudes like whispered Nana afterwards, like that was some interesting tech or something like that. So that was pretty cool. How about you? You have any super epic moments?
I would probably say speaking of your 50th win and everything, I would say my last dungeon that I completed to get me to 3K. So the
Yeah.
setup for this was I do have a sort of I guess I'll say, yeah, I have a Mythic Plus team together now, where it just kind of formed in the last week of the season. But I had been pugging because some of my teammates had been busy. Like our tank is writing his thesis for his master's degree right now in like engineering or whatever. So he's not necessarily available all the time. And I had been pugging. I was so burned out. I was tilted out of my mind. I had been screaming at the game and I was at 2990. I had logged off from so many failed stone vaults. I don't know what John Blizzard put sleeper agents in my keys to intentionally throw them or something was going on, but I was not having it. And I took a short break. I needed to like cool off and played Marvel Rivals for a little bit. And I was thinking to myself, you are so close to your goal again. All of your friends have pushed through that sort of valley of despair to really get through and accomplish the goals that they set out to do. What are you doing with yourself thinking that you're going to give up at the last second? When I got that realization, I'm like, yeah, I gotta log on WoW like right now. And one of my teammates whispered me, hey, we got a Necrotic Wake 13 key. It's one of the dungeons I need. Do you want to run it? I'm like, yeah, sure. And my younger brother who's playing Rhett, he's like, yeah, so we're gonna go to the Necrotic key. Now, I like my younger brother. Don't get me wrong. He's a very swell fella, but he's still newer to higher keys, and I was a little bit concerned about bringing him because he's just inexperienced with higher keys. And also, that whole thing, like I don't know if you have siblings yourself
Yeah.
or have so it's like, oh man, I don't want my little brother to come and cramp my style, but it's like I knew he knew how to at least survive. When I thought to all the keys that I did play with him, he never died to stupid things. And even though Rhett was his off spec, he's a tank main normally. I was like, you know what? Why not bring him? Let's just see how it goes. Just so happened that our tank player was able to take a break from his thesis and come run the key with us. And the 4 of us went into the Necrotic Wake and we just blasted it. So after so many failed keys, we were finally able to get it. We had 2 deaths for the whole dungeon. Both were me. Not that I'm inting necessarily. It's just like in Mythic Plus, when you run out of stops and multiple mobs target the same person, they just kind of get deleted off the face of the earth. That's just kind of how high keys work. But aside from that, it was a very solid key. Ended up getting the 3K. I said a lot of things that I probably cannot say on stream or this video about how I was not a fan of the game at the time, and it was a great time, man.
That's so cool. You hadn't shared that story yet. I actually got chills when you said you got 3K and you were, playing with your brother who you were worried about playing with. Like, and I'm not worried, but like, dude, that's so cool. Like to just go in there and smash out the key. That's just how it happens a lot of the time, man.
I guess now that we've both achieved our goals and we've both and respectively in PvP and PvE, let's get to the part of the podcast that's going to piss people off and make people not like us. And that is comparing PvP and PvE. This is a long debated topic in the WoW community, very passionate. You go on WoW Twitter and you start up this conversation. Hey guys, what's harder, PvP or PvE? You're going to get a lot of slurs thrown at you. So I guess the biggest thing, let's go ahead and compare and contrast at least, right, as opposed to saying which is harder right off the bat. What are the biggest differences between PvP and PvE in gameplay, strategy, or community?
Man, that's a big question. I almost feel like I don't want to talk on it too much just because I haven't seen like super high level of PvE. I think AOTC would be my highest PvE achievement. Keystone Master is something I've gotten I think every season since like 4 of Shadowlands or something like that. So I have that, but I know that's kind of like a joke for most people too. I shouldn't say that because I'm sure there's people out there who are trying and maybe struggling, but like the biggest difference in PvP and PvE is just the reactiveness. I would say, like, I feel like PvP is like you're having to react to the game, and it feels like PvE is you're learning the game and just kind of mastering more of a script. And I think there's people who say PvP is that way too, but it's you still have a player on the other side who isn't going to act the exact same every time. And there's situations where you're having to actively react to it. So that would be the difference in gameplay and strategy. As far as community, that's interesting because like when I've done AOTC, I usually just find a group of people I like raiding with. You just get into Discord, have a good time, hopefully while you're raiding, and just have a good time. Usually when I do Mythic Plus, I'm trying to fill one of the needed slots. Like I don't really care what I play in Keystones. I've done it as DPS, healer, and tank. Usually I look at what's most needed for the season and I just pick one of my specs to play. So like I usually get instant invites. People have told me like you need to learn the key before you come in here. And I don't usually do that. But yeah, I would say that in PvP, it's so weird too because like I feel like LFG is so bad in PvP and I just haven't had to use it in a very long time. I feel like, and maybe that's part of the question, is like I feel like it's so much better to build a group of people that you enjoy playing with and meet new people through that group of people rather than using LFG. I think a lot of people are meeting people in solo shuffle. So like when you are getting really good at solo shuffle, hitting up other players in your lobbies and saying like, hey, you want to run some threes sometime? I think that's a way a lot of people are meeting people. Like Check PvP has LFG tools. I think the PvP community is filled with a lot of really cool people who are chill, and it's also filled with toxic people with egos, and I'm just hoping that I don't ever become that type of PvPer. But I like with you having more experience on the Mythic Plus side and even rating, I'd like to hear your answer kind of to that same question. What would you say is the difference between PvE and PvP as far as gameplay, strategy, and community?
Yeah. Sure thing. So the main difference between PvP and PvE is the barrier to entry. PvP is much harder to get into initially, but I think that if we're comparing let's say Mythic Plus to PvP, or I'd say yeah, Mythic Plus and Arena, like if we're really drilling down, because I think rating's its own thing. You essentially have in PvE infinitely scaling content that it just gets infinitely harder. It's uncapped. So there will be at some point, you can go as high as you can go. There will eventually be a wall that is by the game that will stop you from progressing further. Whereas with PvP, that variable changes. I don't want to necessarily factor rating into it, but it's more so you are competing against the skill levels of other players. And so PvE is a lot easier to get into because the skill threshold that's required to do something like a +2 or even just like a Mythic 0 to begin with is drastically lower. You're not going to get as punished severely for not pressing your defensives. I mean, even when I was running +12s this season, there were several enhancement shaman players who did not know what curse to spell was. If I was in an arena match at 1600 and I didn't curse to spell a hex off of somebody, I would be getting called the worst names on the internet. That barrier to entry is a little bit higher. I will say if we do include rating into the mix, rating has a social politics aspect that is significantly greater than that of what you would need to build for Mythic Plus or Arena when it comes to building a team composition, because in Mythic raiding, you need 20 people. And ideally, you're going to have every single raid buff, so you have to factor in for that. You're going to have 4 to 5 healers, depending on the fight. You're going to have anywhere between 1 and 3 tank players, depending on the fight, even though most of the time it's like 2, 4, 14, I think is the comp for a Mythic raid. And there's a lot of social politics involved. You know, you get 20 people, not everybody's going to think the same, look the same, act the same. So you got to get along with people that you don't quite agree with, or even can't really stand, to accomplish that common goal. And I think that factor is less of a case in something, say, like Arena. I personally don't like the social politics aspect, which is why I dropped out of the Mythic raid scene, but that is something that I would say factors in community wise in that regard. I think that's about it for my thoughts thus far
Yeah,
as to comparing and contrasting.
I guess kind of you bringing that up, I will say, like, especially once you get around the 2400 range, like I feel like I played with every person who sits at that rating. It does feel like there's like communities of people like that in PvP too. I don't know that it's as exclusionary, because I think most people just want to queue. But yeah, I kind of didn't even really talk about that, and I think there is some of that in PvP too. But I think you're probably right. Like a 20-man group where you need exact players is probably one of the most difficult social constructs in the game.
Yeah, because I mean, you also like think of it this way: 20 people. You need 20 people to even raid.
Yeah.
So what happens when somebody's absent? Well, you pull from a bench of players, and sometimes people don't want to be on the bench. So you have a bench of like 5 players that aren't in the raid, that are essentially on standby. And then don't even get me started on loot drama. Well, now, granted, I know that when you say compositional needs, that stuff does apply to Arena too, because like let's say RMP, like that's a comp where you need to build a arena composition that the crowd control types are different enough to where you can have a really effective crowd control chain, or the damage profile is good to where you can coordinate bursts together, or you have enough utility that all covers each other's weaknesses. So like Ret War is very good with utility. There is that sort of compositional needs too, where it's like not only do you need to jive well with the people that you're playing with in Arena, but you also need to have a team that's also viable based off of class synergy. Whereas I would say in Mythic Plus that would be a little bit more flexible, just because you have like 3 DPS spots. So I guess meta dependency too can be a factor that maybe we didn't touch much on. Now I want to get to the juicy part. How does the satisfaction of a PvP milestone like Gladiator compare to one that's more PvE oriented? I guess I'll start off by saying, first and foremost, significantly less people have Gladiator than people that have 3K and Mythic Plus. There's a statistic, I don't know how relevant it still is, because I think it was taken at the beginning of, or either end of Dragonflight or beginning of the War Within. The amount of people who actively play PvP seriously is about 7% of the player base. That means 93% of the other player base is doing some form of PvE content. Maybe not Mythic Plus, maybe they're just the collector type. I mean, we haven't even touched on the people who do like battle pets and transmog farming, but like only 7% of people play PvP seriously. And then of those people, you have to be exceptional to even get 2400, to even get Gladiator. And that in itself, because you're playing against a smaller population, you have to do that much more work to stand out. Am I kind of on the mark with that, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very just like this stats speak for itself. Like WoW is a PvE game. PvP is such a small subset, and then yeah, to get that Gladiator mount, you have to be, you know, a percentage of a percentage. It's definitely, you know, crazy. And then like the skill difference between someone who can just, you know, hit Gladiator for the first time, me, and these rank 1 players is just insane. And then there's a whole skill level between rank 1 players and people who win AWC. Like there's probably that exact same thing, you know, for people for the high level key scene. I would be interested, because like you said something about like there's a lot less people with Gladiator than 3K, you know, Mythic Plus, eye level, whatever it's called, IO. But I do wonder what the percentages are, like, you know, people who engage in keystones and who has 3K versus how many people engage in PvP and have, you know, Gladiator or 2400. Because I still would probably think that that the Gladiator's more rare than 3K, but I bet the numbers aren't as crazy as it makes it look. Because like, you know, say there's 10,000, you know, people with 3K eye level. I'm probably butchering the terminology, and there's only, you know, 1,500. yeah, there's only 1,500 gladiators or whatever, those percentages might actually be a lot closer. And the only reason it looks like PvE is easier is because there's more people engaging in it.
I get what you're saying. So at least when it comes to the PvE scene, Mythic Plus scene, 3K is about somewhere between top 2 to top 1% of the player base right
Yeah.
now. And then the title, rank 1 title, the 0.1% is about like 34, 50. I think I haven't checked Raider IO before doing the podcast. Whoops. So feel free to fact check me. Where's I going with this? So I think if we're comparing just 3K to Gladiator, my perspective may be a little bit biased because I have that PvP background experience.
Mm.
I think 3K is a more reachable goal. For somebody who is newer to World of Warcraft in general, I actually have one of my teammates now who, this was his first season as well, taking Mythic Plus seriously, and he went from somebody who was just not that great at the game to obtaining his 3K first out of all of us through improving and working his way up. Whereas if you're somebody and you are brand new to PvP and you're trying really hard to push, it is very unlikely that your first season pushing you're going to hit Gladiator. That's why, I always recommend if it's your first time doing PvP ever, it's a huge barrier to entry. I would shoot for something like 1800 because at least you can walk away from the season with the elite set, which is what a lot of people really chase after in the first place when they play PvP. But at the same time, if you do only do PvE content and you're watching this on two PvP channels, I would highly advise just some point during season 2 taking maybe 1 month to learn PvP. Just learning the fundamentals in PvP will make you drastically better at Mythic Plus, at raiding, just in PvE content in general, because you get to use every part of your class. You get all the fundamentals, and that transfers over so well.
Yeah, I like to be careful about, not talking about what I don't know. So that's why I don't like to like shit on 3K or anything like that. But I'm confident that if I put my mind to it for one season, I could hit 3K at least. So I guess when you put it that way, like, yeah, it's I'm definitely, not even close to thinking that I could get rank 1 in Mythic Plus, but I do think 3K would be achievable if I put the same amount of effort into 3K that I did for Gladiator.
You would probably be able to get it with a lot less resistance than you would with Gladiator. I will say that for certain.
Yeah.
I guess this is the segment where if you're watching this on YouTube when it's posted, if you have any questions for us that we've maybe not addressed in the duration of this episode, just feel free to let us know in the comments below. Either myself or Erradic will get back to you as soon as possible. And now that we've got that out of the way with our season 1, let's talk about the season 2 updates and speculation that we may have. So, are there any announced changes for season 2 that excite or worry you?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the same thing. As far as stuff that excites me, Preservation Evoker's rescue now breaks roots, which is huge. So if my target's rooted or I'm rooted, I can hit rescue on them and still save them. It's been like Preservation Evoker, everyone loves to complain about nullifying shroud, but they are one of the most susceptible healers to CC, because they are constantly in a 25-yard range of their targets. So that rescue is going to be huge. They're getting a their heals are no longer going to snapshot the mastery. It's probably too much to explain on this, but I'm excited about that change. There was one more change I was excited about in regards to Preservation Evokers. One thing I'm not excited about though is the CC changes. They're making CCs like Polymorph and Freezing Trap, and I think several others have a low damage threshold before they break instead of instantly breaking on damage. I know there's a lot of people who were upset about this because their spells like automatically AoE due to talents that they have to take, and so it's frustrating to have their CC break for those reasons. But one of the ways I could outplay other teams as a Preservation Evoker is making sure I was standing to where the CC would break if they CC'd me and they were damaging their target, like especially with mages like Feral, Mage, whatever. I could outplay the team by playing on top of my targets instead of trying to like maybe stay LOS and stuff like that. And so it's really frustrating to kind of like lose the ability for that.
I wonder then if that change in itself will see a massive rise again in setup comps like RMP, like Cupid, that sort of stuff. And I also wonder when it comes to the strength of Priest in general, if that means I will be unable to like death things like Blind or Freezing Trap or Polymorph. Like if my death damage won't be enough
That's a great
to actually
question.
break that
Yeah.
anymore.
It's
So
got to break it, I would think. Like that's such a skill expression. To get rid of that would be insane to me.
I would hope so. And also, it's a great thing that they decided to completely remove one of my cooldowns entirely. Rapture's now out of the game. So,
That
yeah,
is
I'll have to
interesting.
see how the changes adapt. I'm still a little bit newer to Priest. I'm not like an automatic Jack or any like Priest expert. But yeah, I'll have to see if there's any new builds that arise as a result of that.
What is there anything that you're excited for in season 2, or stuff that you're worried about?
Things that I'm excited for. I mean, the new season's seeming exciting. Like I like the Undermine theme in general. I like the prospect of a fresh start that at the beginning of a season when everybody comes back to the game. That's fun time where I get to, enjoy dungeons or battlegrounds with friends or like arenas with friends. I'm very worried about the class changes in general, especially disc priest wise. And then now that I didn't even know that the CC changes were a thing until you told me about it just now. So I'm kind of reacting to it live where I'm like, oh man, our
Well,
setup comp's gonna be back. And
chat
then in that
chat is
case,
letting me know that death is hard coded to break the CC, so that you at
okay,
least got that going
Jackass,
for you.
thank you, chat. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, if that's the case with the CC changes, I may need to find a rogue and a mage to play with. If any rogue or mage players out there need a priest, I mean, I might be available. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. But
I just there's diamond ice for hunters. Like it makes it obsolete. Like if you don't have to play it because now your traps don't immediately break. I just I'm
it,
not crazy about the changes.
that's fair. I think that's all we actually had to talk about for the time being, unless chat has anything that we may have not touched on. I haven't looked at chat the entirety of the duration.
So what are your goals for season 2? Like just overall PvP, PvE?
Probably 3K, probably duelist, I think is just like a short-term goal for Arena. I don't want to be. I know the last time we recorded one of these episodes was it's February now, so 8 months ago, a little bit more than 8 months ago. And boy, was I humbled, and I have had my opinion change of the game very quickly in that duration of time. So I will now set more realistic goals to achieve, and then when I hit those, I can push my limits a little bit further. Gladiator would be cool if I meet the right connections or if I play with some really cool people and I'm able to get good at either Priest or Resto Shaman. That's always been something that I've been chasing after as well. But I'm at the same time not going to get to the point where I sacrifice my health again for the sake of World of Warcraft. Now that I've been going to the gym and taking care of myself in that regard,
Proud of you,
I've
bro.
lost quite, yeah, thanks, man. I've lost quite a bit of weight since the last time we spoke. I have a much more healthy approach to the game than I did before. How about yourself? You going for Glad again? You going for maybe Erratic rank 1, maybe Erratic 2700, maybe or
Yeah, so we talked about like whether I want to push for Glad, and I said no, but then like thinking on it, like we got up to 2700 MMR. I'm like, dude, it'd be really cool to push for 2700 and threes. And I think Shuffle rank 1 is like out of my reach, but like at the same time, it probably not if I actually put a lot of effort into it. I don't want to say they're goals because I'm not ready to make them my goals. Like just because I've kind of said like I kind of go crazy once I set a goal. I would like to stay in the top 50 preservation evokers all season in Shuffle, so that's kind of a weird goal. I think if I can play with like specific people and I can push 2700, I think that'd be really cool. As far as PvE, I'd like to get AOTC, I'd like to get my 2K in Mythic Plus, and really just I'd like to have fun playing the game. I don't want to like sit here and not enjoy my time playing, so I'd like to reel it back a little bit if I'm playing and it just feels like a job, because it has felt like that occasionally, and I always hate myself when I'm playing and I'm like, just because I'm like so dialed in that I can't get off the fucking game.
Yup. And then doing content creation on top of all of it, it really is a time sink.
We never talked about that, but like as far as like stuff I had to like, I meant to mention that during the struggles part. Like one of the biggest struggles is like I've dialed back so far on content creation. I was putting out a TikTok every day, and like I was spending so much time queuing that I couldn't do that. Yeah. So we have one question from chat. So what was your favorite comp to play not based on results in season 1? I really liked playing Devastation Hunter. Like that was such a fun comp. It felt like it was just so much damage, and it was easy to get CCs off. It felt kind of cheesy, but I had a lot of fun with that. What, like, did you have a favorite Mythic Plus comp?
Favorite Mythic Plus comp was anything involving enhancement shamans made the game way easier. When I was playing both my Aug Evoker and my Discipline Priest. Aug Evokers made the game easier, Death Knights made the game easier. I liked playing with the Rep Paladins that I know. You may not know this, but Rep Paladins have an awful reputation in PvE for just like...
I see it on Twitter all the time. People fucking hate Red Paladins.
Yeah. LFG Rep Paladins are like the worst people to ever exist. And I say this very jokingly. Not. Yeah, it... Yeah, and then there's some certain servers that I avoid taking to my keys, but I'm not gonna say the rest of that out loud because I'm not trying to speedrun getting canceled just yet. I'd say probably Death Knight, Shaman, and Evoker were really fun to play with in Mythic Plus.
Yeah, I kind of thought about playing Aug Evoker, but like everyone's saying it's dead now, so I don't know.
Yeah. Thank goodness, it's about time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, well, that's all I have. Do you have anything else?
Nope, that'll do it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hope you appreciate this discussion we had. If you'd like to see more of this type of stuff, or if you have any topic suggestions and want to see Erradic and I talk about it again, just let us know down in the comments below. And with that, my name is Moon. This is Erradic, and we will see you guys in the next one.
See you guys. Thanks for joining.